An inquiry into the Black Summer bushfires of 2020 has found more guidance and training should be given to firefighters in regards to injured wildlife. The New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service has teamed up with Taronga Conservation Society to develop a training course.
Throughout the summer months, Australia's wildlife face what's known as trauma season. They're more likely to be hit and injured by a car, caught in a severe storm or forced to flee from a bushfire.
There's a lot of young animals around, and the young animals, especially teenagers, get into a lot of trouble. So we see a lot of young animals that are fledging or leaving their parents, coming in, they're injured. And a lot of people around. So, there's people in their cars and they're out in their boats, and unfortunately where there's people, that often wildlife are injured.
The summer of 2019 and 2020 had the most significant impact on Australian wildlife and their habitat. It's estimated that around 3 billion native animals were impacted and around 60,000 koalas were killed.
We had a lot of wildlife coming in, not directly burnt animals. Unfortunately, many of the animals affected by the fires did not survive.
A New South Wales government inquiry released in July 2020 recommended that the government develop a policy on injured wildlife response, rescue and rehabilitation, including guidance for firefighters on handling injured wildlife. The Taronga Conservation Society has developed a wildlife first response training program in partnership with the National Parks and Wildlife Service. It's now available to over 80,000 firefighters and volunteers across New South Wales.
They will learn how to assess wildlife in the field, to report the wildlife and to respond if it's applicable. Obviously saving people and property is their first priority, but if they come across wildlife, they'll have the skills to respond to that wildlife.
It takes just a couple of hours to complete.
It was done that way, it was written that way purposefully. We wanted something that could be done almost in the field as well, so while they were getting ready perhaps. They can be prepared and do it beforehand, but if firefighters are coming maybe from somewhere else, they can sit down and do the training as well. There's also a handbook that goes along with the training that they can have in the field with them, in their pockets or in their truck as well, and it is downloadable.
The course covers everything from how to check a pouch for young to how to properly restrain and transport an injured animal, as well as the do's and don'ts of wildlife first aid, including an important lesson on why you should never give an animal, such as koalas, water from a bottle.
I think a number of people would have seen across social media and the news pictures of koalas drinking from water bottles. That has a really high risk of going down their air pipe, going down the wrong hole basically, and a number of them actually led to those koalas' deaths. So in this training package, we advise firefighters who don't have much equipment on them, on their fire vehicles, to just provide a shallow dish of water if possible, if they do see that animals are dehydrated on the fire ground.
The program has been a collaborative effort.
We had fire management practitioners across Fire and Rescue New South Wales, Rural Fire Service, Forestry Corporation and National Parks and Wildlife Service. They're the 4 fire agencies for New South Wales. And we also collaborated with the wildlife rehabilitation and veterinary sectors. And with this working group, we partnered with Taronga Conservation Society Australia to actually develop the content of the training course.
With extreme fires and fire seasons likely to become more frequent, the wildlife first response training may be an important tool in protecting Australia's native animals. Christy Lloyd, Sky News.